Welcome to Help Matters, the Aspen Medical Podcast. I'm your host, Eamon Quinn from the Aspen Medical Marketing and Communications team. Today, I'm joined by a friend and colleague, Sanja Marais, who's our General Manager of Technology and Innovation. Sanja brings that expertise not only across the Aspen Medical organization, but also to our team in Global Advisory Services. Sanja, what we're going to talk about today is how technology and innovation is helping to retain and support employees post-pandemic and reverse what has been called the Great Resignation. Now, before I let you get in there and start talking, and I know you can talk, this is what happens when an Irish Australian and a South African Australian get together. This podcast, which should potentially last 10 minutes, could go on for hours at a time. So, but I'll just briefly tell people what we're going to talk about. So the word, the Great Resignation, or the words, the Great Resignation, you may have seen them around a little bit in the media recently. The Great Resignation was first noted in the US when a record number of workers resigned in April 2021, then again in July and August. In August alone in the States, 4.3 million workers left their job. This was reported by Forbes. Recent surveys polled 1,000 US employees to determine why job changers left their previous roles and what attracted them to new ones. So in essence, that is what the Great Resignation is about. And we're going to talk to Sanja a little bit about that now on Help Matters. So Sanja, first of all, welcome.
Thanks, Simon.
Let's get straight into this. The COVID pandemic has had a huge impact in the way we work here in Australia and around the world. How has technology's role changed during that time?
Well, if you think about how you literally had to take your office home, companies like Zoom and Microsoft had such booms and had to scale and accelerate their pipeline of development. We've all seen how teams have had a lot of new features coming along. We know that even in Australia, how difficult it is for the Medicare benefits schedule to release new items, how they have had a brand new telehealth item set up just during COVID so that our GPs could actually reach their patients during this pandemic. I don't know if any of you went to Officeworks in the beginning of the pandemic trying to look for a monitor or even a headset or office chair. It looks like, it looked like Officeworks were raided. So technology was everywhere and anywhere. And if you didn't have the right scalability or if you didn't have the right platforms in place, you literally couldn't work. So everything was driven by technology in this pandemic.
Okay. And I can certainly, I can certainly relate to that. In the old days, if you're slightly late for a meeting, walking down the corridor, talking to someone, chatting, you'd walk into the meeting, maybe a couple of minutes late. These days on Teams and Zoom, people are texting you 10 seconds after the meeting has started if you're not physically, there. So I get that. Let's talk a little bit about that point, I suppose. Our organizations and their people worn out from using technology to connect and communicate? Because we don't do that naturally. We're personable. We like to see. And are we getting tired of all this technology we need to use?
I think the pandemic, it had an overall impact on our mental health and our well-being. But I don't think we can blame technology for that. I just think that companies actually realize that employees can be productive. It doesn't matter whether they're in the office or not. And technology was the enabler for this big shift to remote working. The way we fused our home environment and office into one, I think meant that people were always on. When your office is now in your home, you're working more hours, you don't get up for lunch, you don't have water cooler conversations with your friends at work. So it is being fatigued by this major disruption in our normal days, in our normal daily lives and routines, but also bringing technology into every space into our house, even with our children. I mean, we had to do homeschooling. Some people go to the office to get away from their children. So having to be the teacher, navigating homeschooling through online technology, that has definitely brought some fatigue in it. But I don't think it's, technology necessarily was the cause of that. I just think the pandemic had, an overall effect on that. And we've all seen the pantless Teams blunders, always being on mute while you're talking. There's some good and bad situations, but I do think that technology has bring about a huge amount of change for us in the way that we can now shift our workforce in a hybrid environment, working almost from the office and home. So good on technology. And I think we will see a lot of innovation and a lot of development in platforms that will enable us to continue to work this way.
And is it true? Oh, okay, there's a couple of things from that I'd like to talk about. You're absolutely right about not being on mute. I was once feeding my dog. Not that I wasn't not listening to the important conversation, but my dog happened to be hungry and was biting my feet. So I forgot to go on mute, and I had some stern words with him, and I then grabbed some bones out of the fridge, all whilst engaging with the senior team at Aspen Medical around our weekly sort of meetings and so on. So yes, absolutely, go on mute if you don't need to go on mute. Do you think there's a sense for people that they just don't use the technology in a way that people are afraid that the technology has begun to dominate what they do? You've kind of intimated in that answer there that people get up in the morning, they probably still in their pajamas. It's because their office and everything else is quite blurred. And people haven't put technology yet in the box marked, this is good for me, it allows me to be more flexible. And they're becoming inadvertently a slave to it themselves, that they're not defining where those lines are themselves, that it's incumbent upon people to do that.
I think so. And I think you have to have clear boundaries. We see it with our teenagers and our children today. They've become absolute slaves to technology. And I think it's just going to increase. And they make it so easy for us. It's so easy to be a slave. You can have your TV on your phone now. I mean, you can watch Netflix, Amazon, Disney, whatever. It is really hard to get away from all of that. You can even read your books on your phone. You don't have to have a paper book anymore. So we definitely need to put the boundaries down. But I know it's much easier to say that than to do that. You hear your phone ping and you have your emails, your work emails right there mixed in with your personal emails. It is really hard for people to draw the lines. And I think companies, especially now that we are going to continue to have this working environment where you do have the flexibility to have employees both at home and in the office, that there will have to be really strong ground rules from employers and managers to say when it's after hours, we just don't contact our employees and things like that. And I know that I've read on the news that there was actually a country that is outlawing companies to be able to contact employees after hours. So, there's with great freedoms and great technology, I think there has to be more governance as well in how we act and, with each other, especially after hours, because technology just makes it so easy for us.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. We started with the preamble was just, we spoke about this whole term about the Great Resignation. We're going through a period that, this is being defined, and I've heard it myself several times. This is called the Great Resignation. Does technology have a role to play in managing this?
Now, I'm very pro technology. It's in my title.
Well, first of all, I would hope so. Secondly, you're a much better marketing and communications director than I am, because I see you've decided to brand. I'm sure that's a digital background, but I'm very impressed, by the way.
This was not
my job.
Not my own doing. I will discuss this offline with you, how this came about.
Go, tell us, does technology have a role to play in managing what we're calling the Great Resignation?
I think technology and the way we use it will have a massive impact on future retention strategies for organizations, and we will definitely need to tap into it. In Aspen Medical, we are implementing robotic process automation, or RPA, and we're doing that to remove mundane tasks that employees have to do. So if you think about somebody who has to do manual data entry, somebody in a help desk who have to reset passwords, and maybe in training, just issue certificates. So we are trying to support those type of, mundane tasks by replacing it with robotic process automation. It's not the robots are not coming. We're not going to take over people's jobs. We just want to ensure that we give people more meaningful work. And I think if you talk about the Great Resignation, what does your retention strategy look like? I mean, if you are going to give your employees more training opportunities, upskilling your teams, giving people meaningful work, technology can play a very positive role in as a retention strategy. And I also think some of the things that we do in Aspen is trying to make accessing systems easier. So removing fragmented systems, creating new user interfaces, make it easy for your employees to have a relationship with technology and to work with technology. I think that companies that lag in innovation and flexibility will quickly find that they will just not retain their employees. We used to say that flexibility and work from home was a perk in many companies. That has just fallen away. So companies that use that as a retention strategy will realize that they're not unique in the market anymore. So what do we do then is we do look at how technology can enable it to make working from home easier, to become, a market leader in new types of innovative working. That is where employees will go. And I think technology will support remote work a lot and will have a big impact on how companies retain their employees.
Thank you. And I, there was something you mentioned in there that I have this vision of you of some kind of Darth Vader with these, legions of robots ready to take over the world.
Mine is little robots, and they're all named after Matrix characters. We've got Morpheus running already.
Okay, good. And that's right. And within Aspen Medical, we have Project Neo as well. So now I'm beginning to figure out how it all works. There's a lot of talk about employee experience in this pandemic affected world of work. What do employees really want? Two questions. What do employees really want? And is that in conflict with what employers need?
I think, and the pandemic has just highlighted some of these areas where organizations and employers will have to improve on their employee engagement. You do not have the water cooler conversations that you used to have. You do not have the big old the big old boards in the kitchen and in the hallways. Email is no longer the preferred way of communication. I don't know if you guys noted, but platforms like Slack, Teams, Zoom, all have chat functions. And that is how employees want to work with each other. So how do you get a informal conversation going without having to email? You go to your chat function. It's becoming more and more important that we do provide employees with those platforms. I don't think employers always want that. I know we had some conflict where we said, it's too easy for employees to use Teams and be a little bit more inappropriate. There's GIFs and, you can have emojis and all of those things. But that is the way of the world. That is how employees want to interact with each other. And I think if companies want to retain and engage employees, they will actually have to look at how do they support this hybrid remote engagement and design their platforms or procure platforms that can support the employees to work like that. I think that the casual approach is not always what employers want, because employers think that all corporate communications, with each other need to be more formal. But I just think that your technology stack can be built out, things like Yammer, things like Teams chat, and we are Microsoft House and Aspen Medical, so I'm using those terms because that's what we use, and we've worked out how well it works for us to communicate with the employees that way. So with that, then obviously comes adapting your policies and your procedures to support the use of these more informal ways of working, so that employees know that, there's still an acceptable use policy and appropriate workplace behavior, even when you work from home. But it just enables us to communicate more effective, just say hi through Teams rather than having dear so-and-so, kindest regards in a long email. So yes, I think that employees want quick and easy, employers want more formal, but there's definitely a mid-ground between that.
Yeah, well, I just personal issue, I suppose. I am, getting into my early 50s. So I do find it quite unusual, I guess, when there are so many platforms within which to contact me. So it's become more obvious to me over the last few months. People will ping me on Teams. And I'm not ready for that, because to me, Teams is still go to meetings, video camera on. I know it has a chat function. And it's not that I'm that old. It's just I now have to keep an eye on Teams chats for people who are pinging me. Plus, I got my email. Plus, yesterday I received a couple of pieces around on WhatsApp. It's like I now have this dashboard of ways that people can contact me, that I'm going to now keep my eyes peeled on, because to that person they're sending me something important, but to me, you know, I gravitate towards email, and that's where I like to see all my stuff. But I'm noticing a bit more of that traffic is now coming. Yes, it's casual, or you know, in some cases people are flicking me a link or doing something else, but I'm now having to keep my eyes peeled on several different ways to contact me. And I think I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just a matter of retraining my mind into remembering that, you know, there are all these ways to contact me.
I think that's where, I think just that's where technology is so important, that when you do provide this to employees, make it an integrated platform, make it easy for employees. So make sure that your Teams, your Outlook, your SharePoint, everything works together, so that it is easier for employees to be able to not miss any important messaging.
Okay, nearly there. What have we learned about balancing cybersecurity with easy access to information when we're not in the office? And can we have both?
Now, this is a topic that I can talk to about the whole day, and I will leave you.
I just saw the word cybersecurity in there, and I'm just warning you, this could go on for quite some time. But anyway.
And I promise you, I'm going to be succinct. I've got only 2 bullet points here, but the threat landscape has just widened and widened with, you know, with the pandemic and with us having this remote and hybrid working environment. Can we have both? Yes, we can. I just think that maintaining cybersecurity work practices in a hybrid environment is all to do with organizations preparing and upskilling their technology stack and their infrastructure, building it out, and making sure that they fill the gaps. A lot of it have to do with end user education and training. It is really important that we look at new ways to train our teams in cybersecurity. In Aspen Medical, we use things like gamification, breach simulation exercises. You would know that you get fished quite a lot by the TI team. It is about changing the way that we look at cybersecurity. It's no longer the IT department that manages cybersecurity. It becomes something that you want part of your culture. So it's building cyber resilience within your organization, and really, you know, talking to users about it. Information is key here. Letting them know when there are cyber threats so they can share it with their families as well, because we see a lot of family members being impacted by cyber breaches. So yes, it's going to get worse because there's so much money. It's so lucrative for hackers to steal information, having ransomware attacks. It's rife at the moment, but we can try our best to educate our users and make sure that people are aware of what's going on. If it doesn't look right, it's not right. Stop clicking is my message to users.
Oh, okay. I have to say, I do enjoy your test phishing attempts with the team. I do pride myself on being a good proofreader and having attention to detail, and I do enjoy trying to figure out what you've tried to trick me with this week. So it's keeps me young. Thank you very much. As an expert, finally, this is the final question. As an expert working closely with our global advisory services team, how can Aspen Medical help other organizations to adapt to this new way of working and to the changing workplace?
Well, I can say that we have a multi-skilled global advisory team. There is so many expertise in that team, and we can assist organizations with a wide range of services, including workplace assessments, gap analysis, development of plans and frameworks. I did speak about how we need to adapt our policies and our procedures to be able to put better governance around the hybrid way of working. The global advisory team have a lot of experience in developing plans and frameworks, and we can even look at your cyber environment and do a bit of a gap analysis there. So depending on what organizations need, we can always have a consultation with them and work out how we can support them.
Sanja Marais, General Manager, Technology and Innovation at Aspen Medical. I'm going to say this in my best Afrikaans. By a donkey.
Groot plesier.